Welcome to Detroit. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass. You can drown them. And that's what we gotta be. That's who we have to be. Because that's our domain. That is our domain. Because we'll tread water as long as it takes to fucking bury you.
Takes the snap, turns, gives to Montgomery, right side, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions! Yes.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. I'm going to tell you something. This is going to be a hard episode to make. It really is. Because when I take a look at what I saw last night in that game against the Eagles, there's just not a whole lot that I can honestly be positive about. And it's not just necessarily the game itself that I'm having a hard time finding anything to be positive about. It's the whole encompassing view of what happened over the course of this week that I have a hard time being positive about. Honestly, the whole course of this year. Because I'm going to tell you something right now. Everybody and their brother knew how important this game was to the Detroit Lions. The players themselves knew it. Aiden Hutchinson said it was a game that we have to win. It's a must-win game. So the players themselves even knew that this was a game they had to win, they had to find a way to win, they had to get that W. And they couldn't do it. And the worst part about it is, it's not because the team wasn't talented enough. Rather, it's that the team isn't built correctly. I'm going to say that correctly. I'm going to say that correctly, and I'm going to say that again. The team was not built correctly. You take a look at that game last night. The Lions were quite literally, by at least the scoreboard, they were in the game throughout the entire course of the game. But let's understand what I mean by the team was not built correctly. The team, as far as the defense, has been built correctly. That defense last night, even though we lost, that team's defense did exactly what we needed to do. It played a perfect game defensively, in essence, to keep the Lions in it. Because that defense was constantly making the Eagles have to, take less than what they would have wanted to, because we were putting that defense in some really bad situations. And yet, despite that, the defense still stood tall. The defense still did exactly what it was supposed to do. The defense absolutely was marvelous last night. But the defense is not where the concern has been virtually all this year. The defense has had literally 1 week where people were kind of questioning it, but since then it hasn't had a single doubt or concern as far as its ability to get the job done. And obviously I'm talking about week 1 when we played the Packers. Ever since then, that defense has shown that it can play at a very tip-top, level. The defense wasn't the concern. Again, as has been all year virtually, it was the offense. And the funny part about it is that we've now come to that point where you can't really look at the whole play calling situation and say, well, it's just one guy or it's just one individual. No, it's the whole damn process. It really is. It's the whole damn process. Everybody wanted to think, oh, well, you know what? It was John Morton. John Morton's the reason why this offense just is not getting things done. It's not just John Morton. Last night, Dan Campbell was in charge of the play calling duties, And Dan Campbell made some of the most ridiculous decisions that I think I've seen him make yet. And I love Dan Campbell. I really do. But there were times last night where I was just like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? You have to think about it. Sincerely think about it. There were times that Dan Campbell decided to go for it on 4th down, and it was like, dude, it's like, it makes no sense why you're going for it here. Either take the 3 points, because there was at least one time where we got down towards the end zone. We were like a couple of yards away, and rather than taking the points, which would have been almost a guarantee because we were that damn close, Dan Campbell decides to go for it on 4th down, and true to form, we don't convert. The one area where the Lions have been one of the best teams over the last couple of years, we cannot convert on 4th down. And again, it's not because we don't have the talent. We have the talented players to get it done in the skill positions. We have the quarterback, we have the receivers, we have the running backs. Where we're failing ourselves, where the offense is failing itself, where the team is thus failing itself, has not a damn thing to do with the skill players. It has every single thing to do with the offensive line. It's that damn simple. There's no other way around it. The Lions failed themselves last night offensively because you had coaches in Dan Campbell who could not get past the fact of simply saying, hey, this is a situation where it's not necessarily the most prudent to go for it on 4th down. Just take the points. Because let me put it out there for you. Had we taken those points when we were down there towards the red zone, down literally just outside the end zone, we are talking now, instead of trying to, force everything to where we need to get the ball back and try and drive the length of the field to absolutely have a chance to win, and we're down 9-16, you add those 3 points from earlier, now you're talking about a 12-16 game. Now it's like, okay, yeah, you still need a touchdown, but you're playing at a completely different, mindset, a completely different, personality than what you have been the whole game. Because think about it, folks. The Lions never once held the lead in that game. Never once. They tied it at one point. They could have had the lead at one point. But thanks to Jameson Williams' freaking, penalty, which honestly, in my honest opinion, it shouldn't be a penalty, but that's the way the NFL is going to call it. We missed the chance to get that lead. We missed the chance to have that 1-point lead. But that right there is just kind of the indicative nature of what the whole night was for the Detroit Lions. It's like, dude, anytime it would seem like we could possibly get close or maybe find a way to pull ahead, we just couldn't figure it out. And the reason why we couldn't figure it out is because we quite literally kept shooting ourselves in the damn foot by making bad decisions. Either the coaches making bad decisions or the players making bad decisions. Because, yeah, you know what? There's that one play I just talked about where Jameson Williams did the celebration in the end zone, and it wound up being a penalty, and then Jake Bates couldn't make that long field goal or extra point, which I find kind of interesting because literally later on in the game, he makes a field goal from, what was it? I think like 6-7 yards further out than what it was for the extra point. That right there is what I'm talking about. It's like, if Jameson Williams had not done that, even though I personally don't think it's a penalty, it shouldn't be a penalty, but it is, again, you're talking about something completely different. Now at that point, it's like, okay, you get the extra point, you get down there where you had that, 3rd down and that you couldn't convert, and you're like at, less than 5 yards out from the end zone, and you take the field goal there. Now you're talking about only being down by 3 points. Now you're talking about a 13-16 game. Which now means, okay, if your offense can just get within close enough, you can tie the game. But instead, because the Lions kept making the same dumb, boneheaded mistakes, we kept finding that we were playing from behind. And the worst part about it is that it wasn't the defense's fault. The defense put up, like I said, a masterclass performance. The offense is the problem this year. And it doesn't matter who the play caller is, because the play caller is part of the problem. It didn't matter when John Morton was the one calling it. It doesn't matter now that freaking Dan Campbell the one's calling it. Because you know what? The play calling is only going to be part of the problem. The main problem here is the offensive line is simply not good enough. Is it a good offensive line? It's okay. It's good enough to get you what you need, but is it good enough to get you where you want to go? The answer is no. Because you have to think about it here. The offensive line last night literally had the same problem that it had against the damn Vikings only a couple of weeks prior. It could not hold up in pass protection long enough to give our quarterback, Jared Goff, or give the offense enough time to really open up the offense the way that we want it to. This is an offense that likes to use those intermediate routes, those digs, those post patterns, loves to use those routes because it really gets everything opened up. And we couldn't get it going because the offense couldn't protect the quarterback. It couldn't open up enough time to really get those routes going. We only were able to connect on a couple of those routes. But then it's also the fact we couldn't get the run game going really. Think about it. The only reason that Jahmyr Gibbs had some of the biggest gains that he had last night, some of the biggest plays that he had last night, was because we kept putting him outside of where the main offensive line was going to block. We were doing, dump-offs out in the flats, screens, whatever have you. That was actually working for once. But again, when we're trying to run the ball up the middle, we're not getting much of anywhere. And again, it goes back to the simple fact of the matter is that the offensive line in the middle is just not good enough. You know what? You can say what you want about individual players, but the offensive line is not a group that focuses on individuality. It focuses on the entire unit working together. And this offensive line as an entire unit is not good enough. It just simply isn't. We cannot, as an offensive line, get enough things going to where we can open up the running game the way we want to, which then opens up the play action game the way we want to, which opens up the main passing game the way we want to. It's just not good enough. And again, that to me is a reflection not on Hank Fraley, it's a reflection on Brad Holmes. And again, I love Brad Holmes. But Brad Holmes this year, in my honest opinion, has made some really bad decisions by not doing things. We already knew that this offensive line was going to be a work in progress throughout the entire course of this year. Already knew it. But we also knew, if I recall correctly, prior to the trade deadline, that, hey, the Lions could have gone out and they could have made a move to potentially bring in somebody to help the middle of that offensive line to give it a much better resemblance of what it's looked like in the past. It would have been a patch job, absolutely, but it would have been a pretty damn good patch job considering everything that we've seen so far. Because think about it. Where's the majority of the pressure and where's the majority of the penetration coming on our offensive line? It's not coming from the edges. It's coming from the interior. Defenses have learned this. They have learned that if you pressure and you put most of your guys in the middle of that offensive line, that's where you're going to make your money this year. Because we don't have the guys in the middle to absolutely hold up when we need to. It was hard enough as it was when we had Christian Mahogany. It's now gotten even harder with him gone. And the problem is that we don't have the guys to make it work. Against really tip-top defenses, we don't have the ability to make it work. When we play against above average, average, or below average defenses, we can make it work. But when we play those really top-tier defenses, the ones that really know what the hell they're doing, it always seems to be that we always fall flat. And the reason why is because the interior of the offensive line is just not able to get the job done. And you know what? It's just that simple. The offensive line, which has normally been our strength, not only as a team but offensively for the last couple of years, has now become our biggest liability. And the funny part about it is that what is Brad Holmes always saying? What is Dan Campbell always saying? We have to win through the trenches. We ain't winning through the trenches. We can't win through the trenches offensively because we don't have the guys in the middle to win through the game, win the game offensively in the trenches. We don't have them. Tate Ratledge is good. But the problem is that Mahogany's not playing anymore. And you know what? I'm going to say this as well, too. You know what? Graham Glasgow, he's a fine veteran player. But the point is, he's not going to be the guy at center. When we lost Frank Ragnow, I wanted to hope, I wanted to pray, I wanted to think that, you know what, maybe somehow, some way, Graham Glasgow fitting there will help, ease things over for the year until we can really address it later on. It just hasn't. Graham Glasgow is a fine player, but he's not the kind of guy we need at center. We need an all-pro kind of guy at center who can really manage the entirety of that line the way Frank Ragnow managed it, the way Frank Ragnow played it, and Graham Glasgow ain't it. Graham Glasgow is, again, a decent guy, but you know what? He's just not going to cut it in that spot where Frank Ragnow is. And you can see how it is completely different. Where the entire offensive line used to be a shield that could get everything going for our offense, run, pass, play action, the whole 9 yards. Now it can't do it. Jared Goff is constantly having to speed up things because he has to get the ball out sooner, which is limiting one of the most important and most explosive parts of our offense. Which then means we have to get into these longer third downs, which means we're taking longer to get to and from first down to second down, or whatever the case might be. The offense is where the problem lies. And you can say what you want, like I said, about the play calling. But the problem is, the play callers are going to be limited because up front they can't get the plays they want to run. So you know what? Everybody's going to want to say what they wanted to say about John Morton, but John Morton was right about one thing. When you cannot get the protection up front you're looking for, you're not going to get the plays you're looking for. And here's the worst part about it is that, like I said, against above average defenses, and below average defenses, we can make it work. But the problem is that's not going to be the way it's going to happen when we get to the playoffs. When you get to the playoffs, you're playing the best of the best. You are. And let's take a look at it from a further perspective. The NFC's the NFC's the conference this year where all the serious Super Bowl contenders are at. It is. And think about it. Every single one has a tip-top defense. The Seahawks, the Rams, the Eagles, they all have tip-top defenses. I mean, I'm just going to tell it like it is. Offensively, if we're in a place where the weather's not too bad, because I'm going to say this right now, everyone's going to want to say, oh, well, because of the weather last night, Goff just didn't play well. Goff was fine with the weather. Because let's understand something here. Goff did complete some rather deep throws that the weather didn't seem to impact that. The problem is when Goff was constantly having to get forced off his spot because the offensive line couldn't protect worth a damn, that was when we couldn't get things going. And it's like, listen, you can't have 10 plays where the offense can't seem to protect the quarterback and then just have one play where, you know what, we're able to move the ball 20, 30 yards at a clip. It's like an offense can't work that way. It has to be consistent, and the consistency factor is just not there. And again, that goes back to me with Brad Holmes. Brad Holmes has failed the team by not making the moves that we needed him to make. Because think about it here. The Eagles did. You want to talk about the whole microcosm of that game last night? It was because the Eagles had made moves that they knew they were going to need to make in order to remain competitive, in order to remain, a team that could potentially win games. That's why they've made all the moves that they've made, because they recognize that they needed help in those spots. But Brad Holmes didn't do any such thing. Brad Holmes has remained largely on his hands this entire year, just focusing on making sure the guys that we already have are brought in and taken care of. And I understand the logic as to why that's the case. You know what? Yeah, you've got to deal with the salary cap. You got to worry about next year. You got all these things you got to deal with. But it's like, listen, let's call it for what it is. You're trying to win a Super Bowl. You're trying to get there. You cannot continue to think that, just what we have is good enough. The good enough phase, it ended about 2 years ago. Good enough is not good enough anymore. The only thing that's good enough at this point is being great. And I'm going to just call it for what it is. Last night was not great. The only thing that was great last night was the defense. And you know what? Like they say, defense wins championships. But the point of the matter is that a defense is only going to take you so far. The offense is going to have to figure it out at some point. And when the offensive line cannot block up front to make sure you get all your normal plays working, it doesn't matter how great a defense is. You're just not going to get there. Perfect example I can think of in terms of a team like that is freaking the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers have a great defense, but offensively, something is not there. It's the same thing with the Lions. Defensively, we're great, but offensively, something's not there. And what's not there is the offensive line is not there in order to make sure that we can open up rushing lanes for our running backs and to make sure we can keep our quarterback protected. Because when it does happen, that's when we have the games like what we saw last week against the freaking, Commanders, where we put up 40-plus points in a game. But yet when we're playing against teams that have really tip-top defenses, like the Eagles, like the freaking Vikings, oh my God, now we're only scoring about, half to a quarter of that. And it's been that way throughout the entirety of the year. It's just that simple. There's no easy way to say it. The truth is ugly. The freaking Detroit Lions failed themselves because the people up front that should be making the decisions to say, hey, we have chances to try and improve this roster where it absolutely needs to be improved. Where the main area it needs to be improved is the offensive line. And when we've had chance after chance, opportunity after opportunity to get that done, it's not happened. It's not been done. And I'm telling you this right now, this offensive line, it's in a really bad way because you have to think about this here. Penei Sewell is great. He's going to continue to be great. Tate Ratledge is going to be one of those better guards, if not one of the best guards probably in a year or two. But after that, you have a lot of damn question marks. Who's going to be the new center? Because Graham Glasgow, I guarantee you, is not going to stay that way. No chance in hell. And if it does, that's malpractice on Brad Holmes' part. Christian Mahogany, okay, he's been solid. But is he really the guy you want at left guard? I don't know. Then you got to take a look at Taylor Decker. Taylor Decker's only getting older. And he's been having to deal with a shoulder injury that keeps flaring up throughout the entire course of the year. How much longer is he going to be able to play? Pretty much from the center all the way to the left-hand side of the formation of that offensive line, you've got nothing but question marks. And right now, you ain't got any answers. You really don't. The Lions' offensive line is going to have a complete total remake over come this offseason. Because I honestly do not think that this offensive line in its current state is good enough to get us where we want to go. I don't see it. We have everything else that we need. We have the skill players, we have the quarterback, we have the defense. We don't have the offensive line. And that's where we're failing ourselves. That's where Brad Holmes has failed the team. That's where Dan Campbell, not recognizing what he has as an offensive line, failed us last night by constantly going for it on fourth down. When it's like, listen, on fourth down, what's the defense going to do? They're going to apply pressure. You cannot hold up long enough in order to get those plays to work the way you want it to work. Or, if it's short enough, you can't pick up the yardage you need. Because there were times when we only had a 4th and 1 or 4th and 2, and we still couldn't get it done. It's just that simple. The truth is ugly. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We have been failed by the very guys who got us this far, but are not adapting to realize that, listen, we have to change a little bit how we handle ourselves. Yes, how you've gotten yourselves to this point has been brilliant. But what is the one thing in the NFL that always is the same? You have to adapt. You have to change in order to continue to be successful. The Lions have done very great in changing from where they were back when Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn were running the show. But this last year, they have not changed in recognizing that, you know what? We have to make sure that if we're going to continue to remain a top team, we're going to have to go out and get other guys that maybe are not a perfect fit for us. And I've tried my best to think, you know what, Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, they know what they're doing. But this is one time where it's like, listen, the offensive line is showing, they don't know what they're doing or they don't have a clue as to figuring out how to get this offense to work. Because it's not just the play calling, it's the whole offensive line. And the offensive line is the key to making sure that the offense works. And right now, that key ain't turning the lock. That simple. So, I'm going to end this episode. I've said my piece on it. So, having said that, I just want to say thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these things. Like, comment, and subscribe. If you enjoyed the content and had not subscribed in the past, I hope to gain your subscription now. But if you just subscribed and forgot to do so, or you subscribed in the past and forgot to do so then, hope that you guys will also make sure to hit that bell notification icon so you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Hope you all have something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless, my friends. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.